everybody's enslaved to that system. You depend on it for everything you need. And large majority of the world's living on credit, which means, and a large number of the nations all over the world are in debt to that banking system. So here everyone is in debt to this controlling factor, and it's an economic control. So it's economic slavery. Literally, you can't live if you don't generate money economically to purchase what you need to live. So now you have become, instead of dependent on the earth directly, which she generously gives everything to you free just for the use, all you have to do is gather it and make use of it. You now become dependent totally on this man-made system that's actually controlled by a small number of people. One way to keep people in control, under control, is to keep them in a fear-based life, a survival mode. When people are in a survival mode, they're very easily controlled. So at any time there is civil disorder, natural disaster, war, this government has the right to declare martial law, which means complete control over all food, fuel, and money distribution. Right now, this whole thing with the terrorism, instead of the terrorism, the terrorist attacks of 9/11 being an indicator that something is wrong here, that we need to look at ourselves as a country and our foreign policy and our effects economically in the world, and see why some people feel like we're worshiping the material world instead of worshiping the divine. Instead of getting the message and kind of taking it to heart that some people are so desperate they're taking these kind of terrorist actions to get their point across, instead of evaluating ourselves, we retaliate and we're going to make war on the terrorists. And so then the fear mode of homeland security, and we need to protect ourselves, and this whole mode of fear that generates fear, all this news and this information about these suicide bombers. But I would ask you personally, whoever is watching this video, when was the last time you saw a terrorist in your neighborhood? When was the last time one of your neighbors was blown up? Is your fear really justified? In other words, in your personal life, are you threatened by terrorists, actually? Or isn't fear always based on what might happen rather than what is happening? That's the nature of fear, is it's always projecting what might or could happen to me based on what it's heard has happened to somebody else. But actually, it's always about what could or might happen rather than about what is happening to you personally. And so a large population of this planet is living in fear, which allows them to be controlled. And have we actually improved the quality of life? Do you only work 3 hours a day to earn a living and the rest of the time is leisure? No. Do you actually walk around and freely gather what you need to live, or do you struggle inside of a building at a job making money to have a diesel truck bring to you everything you need to live? In other words, have you become dependent on this artificial system that man created? Have you become dependent on that, or are you dependent on the earth to provide for you what you need? No, you're dependent on a system, and you have become a slave to your possessions. We own all these things, and then we have to maintain them and pay for them, and people are enslaved by their possessions instead of granting you leisure, time, and freedom. So now what we have is a very stressful life. We're eating foods that don't have the minerals and the nutrients they're supposed to have because the soils don't have the nutrients, because they aren't being enriched organically with natural materials and refed with the minerals. They're just being crop after crop after crop, pulling out the minerals with some chemicals put back in to stimulate growth. And so the planet and the people are sick. And